everybody. How are you? Welcome to Impossible Live. Welcome back if you're joining us again. Whether you're joining us live or you're joining us for a replay, let us know where you're joining us from and let us know a way that we can help you in between our impossible lives. Delighted today to introduce you and welcome you back to a dear, wonderful, stellar, talented woman who I like to call Exquisite Eve. Now, she will laugh because we met years ago in a Facebook group by Susan McVeigh. And I wasn't active online much back then, but I saw this amazing post and I was like, I really need to meet this amazing woman. And I'm really grateful that the universe connected us. And the scary part, Exquisite Eve, it's almost 8 years ago now. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to the talented, exquisite Eve Voyevoda.
Thank you so much for this lovely introduction. Whatever you call me exquisitive, I feel like you overpriced me. It feels incredibly uncomfortable, but nice at the same time. So thank you so much for that. A part of me, which is Leo, and anybody who were born in August, they're like, yeah, call me like that. But yeah. I absolutely excited that we know each other for such a long time. I am happy that Melanie was learning a little bit of video from me. And I was so excited that her visibility is partially inspired by my lessons. And I'm so happy because she has to say many incredible words, many incredible wisdom ideas, nuggets, and amazing things, which she does now on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And I'm so happy that she's visible now and showing up with all these amazing things. Thank you so much for having me on your show now. I'm so excited.
Thank you. So, Exquisite Eve, as I'm calling you Exquisite Eve, and truly my honor and my pleasure that you are returning to join us. And for those who have not checked Eve out in action before, check her out much earlier in our Impossible Live series on personal branding, mastering personal branding, and branding strategies. But Eve, you still have not told the wonderful world what you do exactly. So let's start with wherever you want to start in terms of your story, in terms of how it's a connection key. You just take us on a wonderful carpet ride and we will be happy to hang out and go wherever you lead us to travel today.
I think for a long time, it took me years, literally years, decades maybe, to create a title which works for me. And I call myself visual storyteller. And I think it probably took me 10 years to really owning this title, because visual storytellers are usually operators, photographers, people who create stories through visuals. And I worn many hats, from creative director, designer, art director, some filmmaker nowadays, and many other hats, entrepreneur as well, which helped me to understand what storytelling is all about from many different perspectives. And that's precisely what I teach people when I help them with their personal brands, when I help them to show up confidently with my program Visibility Gym, because I feel like people have something to tell. They have the amazing, powerful story in them. And sometimes the story is not yet ready to be told. Sometimes the story just needs a little push, a little twist and tricks to be told. Sometimes it just requires some visual element to be told. So I help my clients to show up in such a way that they feel really confident and empowered with their own story. And personally, I experienced a lot of changes in my life. In fact, today morning, I woke up with the idea, instead of, being a little bit victim of like, oh my God, so many things happened to me, you know, to really think about my life is adventurous. Like a lot of adventures happen in my life, and fleeing from war, like moving from financial crisis to financial crisis, not my personal, the country wise, many other things, in terms of, I did work 10 years in India. I started working in Ukraine, but for many years I did work internationally. And it's a lot of adventures and it's a tough journey. But I know from my own perspective, we are not always ready to tell all the stories. So we need to be ready for that. And when we give our stories from the perspective of wisdom, when we give our story from perspective of, so to say, not open wounds but scars, it helps us to deliver wisdom to our clients. That's when they start seeing themselves in our stories, and that's what we're going to discuss today, hopefully.
Sounds good. And I, without trying to be the rebel, especially since Eve kind of really trains me from a perspective of how to approach video and how to approach stories. And I am so grateful for you and can't wait for your next visibility, Jim. When we're starting with our stories, because they can be really emotional, how would you suggest we share enough of the story without making it sound like, and you just said it before, when you think back to some things in your life, you could describe it as a role from the perspective of a victim. For those of us who know you and know you well, I just think of you as exquisite Eve, always with tremendous courage. So know how you present your story, how you find the courage to really tell your story. Where do we begin with that?
I think that it's not necessarily about courage. And I heard it a lot from people when they say, "Oh my God, you're so courageous, etc. You did this and you did that." And I don't feel like I'm courageous. I'm just another person who act in different circumstances in the way I could act. So nothing courageous about that. But the thing is that when we are not ready to tell the story, and that's what many of my clients ask me. They say, "Do I have to be that vulnerable and share everything about my life?" And my answer is no. And usually my clients say, like, "Whew, thanks God, we don't need to tell everything." So you don't really need to share every skeleton in your wardrobe. You don't really need to open up about everything. The stories which will work for your business and stories which you have are often very different stories. So sometimes you have a story which is going on in your life. And that's specifically the story which we call speaking from the open wounds, especially if the story is vulnerable, if the story affecting you emotionally, specifically in this moment. This story will be the story in the process. And let's mark it like this. So, when you build your personal brand, you're going to share this part of the story. You're going to talk about what's going on in your life. But I would not recommend you to give any judgment in this story. So you just inform people about what's going on, but I would not recommend you to give emotional judgment. Many times I'll give you example. For example, ladies, entrepreneurs, they love to speak about some relationship which going on along with the business, like whatever they are. Some of them divorcing, some of them breaking up, some of them have some painful situations. Some of them, on the other hand, have very happy situations. Now, if they share emotionally and they talk a lot about their personal life during their business life as well, it grabs a lot of attention. We need to understand it. Now, is this attention lead people to purchase from you? Does it build your business? Not necessary, because there is no wisdom in the story yet. So people can't have this specific recognition factor which people need to buy from you. This looks like this. When they see your story, when they hear your story, they think like, "Oh, she describes my pain. She been there. She can understand me. She describes my fear. This person was just like me once upon a time." Then they hear about your dreams then. because they now have these dreams and they hear about your situation now. When you gain your wisdom, you are successful now, your story is accomplished, and they see in this accomplishment, they dream. So they're not there yet, but they say, okay, you are now where I want to be. They recognize that as well. And then when they see the middle of the story, when you say that you overcome certain ordeal, certain fear, certain problems, there was a process between point one, fear, pain, some terrible moments, and there was a process, and then you achieve something, they can say, I can do it. This person did it. So I can see you as my guide because I see that this process is achievable for me. They can trust you because you describe the process. Now, this is accomplished story, which is, so to say, story from the scar. Imagine this. You tell the story which happening with you right now, which is not accomplished story. If you don't inform people, but you want to involve people in your emotional ordeal, they see your pain, they see your emotion, and they see you now where they are now. So they can sympathize you. They can say, well, I am here right now. Do they see you as a guide? Do they build trust with you? Not necessary. So they are not going to buy from you if they sympathize you, but they may build connection. So if you will accomplish the story earlier than them, you might be a guide for them eventually. So nothing wrong with sharing it. Now, if you will share emotionally painful story and you are in this story right now and you share this story about people who probably have some people in common with you and you judge them harshly online, which is happening more than you want.
Mm.
It can be political judgment, it can be any kind of judgment. You will have two types of people. Some of them will sympathize you because you are in your pain, and some of them will sympathize your opponent. And you will have people who criticize you and you're already in pain. So do you really need these people to sympathize the other part? Do you really need to put it in a public space when it will definitely become more painful for you? Or you just need to keep it privately and wait until things will happen. You also can do it in just informative way. You can say, okay, this thing's happening in my life. This is what's happening. This is just information, and I don't want you to be emotionally involved in this. So this is a difference between vlogging, when the log is a part of that. So log doesn't mean that you emotionally share everything. It's not really a diary. This is just an information. And when you share the story from the perspective of gained wisdom, when you already have that outcome, the result which people want to achieve. So this is pretty much difference between the business story and the story which you can just share so people sympathize you and you build a little bit of like-minded people, so to say, but they will not be your clients. Now, in regards of that, I can tell you that now I'm researching a lot about the influencers, and I was working with a few people who have over 100,000 followers on different social media. And I was surprised to see how less they can do to sell something to the audience, because they very big accounts built on the sympathizing. You can have a lot of followers. You can have that influencer format on your social media. And guess what? It will be completely useless for your sales. It will not bring you any money. It will not build your business. So it's up to you what you're building. Story can work both ways. You can have a lot of sympathetic people who surrounding you, who helping you, who care about you personally. But will that help you to make more money? Not necessary.
So, what exactly, and we joked about this a while ago in the process of me having a masterclass about how to monetize
Mhm.
with transparency. If there is a key to help you open the door, is that key in a well organized story told from the perspective of the observer? Is it a story about the hills and valleys in our entrepreneurial journey, as you're saying? Or in some cases, for certain coaches, they're talking to you about their life journey. I think hard part about keys is we visualize and we're looking for that master key that opens every door, and there isn't one. And you spoke about it in terms of how to frame our story. Where would you suggest going from that perspective?
I had an interesting conversation with one of my guests on my podcast just a few days back, and we were talking about her TEDx, and she's not ready for that yet, but she's going to be ready for that now. And it is very interesting when we discussed when you are ready to tell your story. So here the thing, we discussed two types of stories, right? So one story is for business, where you have your wisdom when you speak from this car. Another story is when you inform people what's going on in your life. The strategy is to use both. And that's an interesting thing because for many people, if you don't have the business story with wisdom, you will have sympathetic people, but you will not have sales. But if you only have the story with wisdom and no relatable story which happening with you just right now, you also won't be that relatable. You won't be a human being. You may go on this path when you speak over the head. So you will teach people that you will be a preacher, but you will not connect heart to heart. So both types of the story have to be used. And that's a long term strategy. That's when we speak about branding, when we understand that people connect with us and see leaders in us when they understand where we're going, where we were, what is going on right now. So they need like broader picture. And when I was talking with my guest, I remember one important thing that I taught you in Visibility Gym. We were talking about the hero journey storytelling format, which I personally love a lot, and I use it a lot in my storytelling. And in fact, because I'm obsessed with movies, of course, I filmed my first documentary film this January, released it, and it will be premiere in March. So basically, when we build the story, we need to see where our story fit in this format. And just briefly speaking about that, there is a circle which just looks like a clock. And let's say initially we have the beginning, it's a very simplified format, when we see the idea that a hero called for adventure. And then there is a refusal of adventure. And I usually teach people how to sell during this story, with your story, because when most of the coaches, most of the experts trying to sell people on that call to adventure before refusal of adventure, your hero, your client is refusing adventure in this moment, and all your documents, all your stories, all your content will just go there, and it will never be reciprocated because people are not ready to hear you. Now, on the clock, when we talk about the 3 p.m. or something, we actually have the moment when our people are ready to choose a guide and go for adventure. The adventure is between 3 to 9 p.m., basically, the whole lower half of the clock. So when they ready to go for adventures, this is when they're going to hire you. So all your content have to work for that part. Now, if you address your own story, you need to understand that your story is also working in exactly the same way. So when you talk about call for adventures, that's when you were in pain. What push you towards this story? So now you have an idea how much you need to talk about this. Basically, not so much. But you need to talk a lot more about when you decide, make that final decision to go for this adventure, to fight your problem, to when did you find your guide, what pushed you through. That's an important part in your story. Now, the lower part of the clock, 6 p.m. approximately, it's an ordeal, the worst part of the journey, the scariest one, right? So, in this part, if you will emphasize a lot how you overcome this fear, what help you to overcome the problem, that will help you to explain that it's not such a scary journey. That's why people will choose you as a guide. This is how you become relatable and at the same time relevant guide for them. Now the next part, which when we're going up, this is a part when you got your wisdom, when you understood your skills, but you didn't yet make them their own. Usually on the actual hero journey storytelling circle, it's called the magic carpet ride, when the hero actually take the way out. In the story of coaching or story of leaders, we talk about how you make these new skills your own, how you learn to turn these new obtained ideas into new skills. So this is a long part between, say, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then when you come back to your home, that's when you gain your wisdom. So when you understand the circle, you also understand when you are ready to come up with your story. So as long as you get back home with this newly obtained wisdom, this is when your story is ready to share. This is when your stories become your wisdom and actually can be a useful tool for your business. As long as you are on the journey, those will be people who sympathize you or who you're going to attract. Many times when I shared the story, informational part of the story, when I was in the middle of some ordeal or something like this, I got a lot of attention and a lot of sympathy from people. However, none of that was related to business at all. So don't mistake a lot of attention with actual business storytelling, which makes you money. That's a huge difference. So when you understand how to tell your story, where your story is, how to make the story relevant, and how your listeners or viewers see your story on the go, this will help you to create content which is way more effective for you, especially video content, which works so well nowadays.
Hmm, that's wonderful, but a lot to think about. I mean, from we don't always know we're at what you described as the wisdom point,
Mhm.
because to many of us, it still feels like we're behind the scenes. We're in the trenches. We don't always, and especially from the mental fitness through positive intelligence perspective, we're the judge, kind of sometimes nitpicking at almost everything. I like to think back to the days when you and Jonathan Howard spoke with me about not feeling comfortable to show up as Mel online. I didn't realize that that story was part of the struggle story, and that there was a wisdom in the okay, watching countdown to go live, doing some deep breathing or some PQ reps or leaning into it, and that turning on the live button was a win. I think the thing too sometimes it happens is in a story, the parts that we think are so interesting are really boring. They're really boring to others. They're not the exciting part. They're not the here's something I can try to help me shorten my journey, or here's a solution that might work for me. But I think what you really helped me do, that helped me look at it differently, was when I could describe it from a client's perspective, it's a much easier story to tell.
It's an interesting part because what you tap into is more about fears. And obviously, in Visibility Gym, we speak a lot about fears, the favorite topic. And it's a point where I happened to test myself recently. It's an interesting moment. So I've been teaching people about how to overcome fear of camera and public speaking for probably more than 10 years now. And I was doing it as a photographer when I was helping my clients to relax during the photo session. I was helping people with that when I was teaching them about it. So there was a lot of elements of that, how I help other people to overcome the fear of camera. And personally, I blocked myself for 4 years to not speak on camera at all and just buying equipment and other things, self-sabotage. Been there, done that, all the crazy stories in my head. I told myself everything, like, from I'm ugly, my background is terrible, or whatever kind of thing. So all the fears, done. I've been there, done them, overcome them, worked with them, understood the neuroscience behind that, science and everything. Now I can explain it to people. It's a very long story in a very short format. However, the fears are not there to overcome them. And that's something for people to understand, that you need to work with your fears. You need to understand how to work with your fears. Your story is ready to be told when you feel comfortable with that. That's a first indication. If you force your story to come through, people will sense it. it will not work for you. So it's really have to be something which you truly enjoy and you feel it. This is your story. This is amazing story which help you. You're excited about your story. This excitement, whether it is your story or about your clients, help you to deliver that energy. Now, how to deliver this energy, that's closely related to the spheres, because what happened, I was last year I was on Toastmasters, and I visited like 4 different Toastmasters when you can actually speak like a guest and like, with no obligations. And I didn't have much talking from the stage. What I was testing, I wanted to understand if my methods work for the stage speaking. So I just wanted to test, and I knew that they will work. It was a very interesting journey because, you understand, I'm crazy scientist. I like this kind of experiments. And so I get to the first Toastmasters. When people ask me, I ask everybody what are their fears. I help a few people in the audience to overcome their fear. In fact, the person who was sitting near me and I was instructing the most won the competition of the best short talk. I was very proud. Never saw this guy after or before. But I spread the wisdom. Done. Personally, in my head, I had every single fear from which I taught people about. I was like, okay, English is not my first language. I will sound stupid. Oh my God, I don't know anybody. So all of that fears come in my mind. But because I teach people how to overcome these fears, I was just observing them. Now, by the end, and I say that fears usually a lot related to manifestation. So we manifest exactly what we have in that feeling in our life. It's 100% true. So I'm great in that because what I manifested, somebody called somebody else instead of me because I was in the queue for speaking and I had to be the last person. And they missed my name, called somebody else Eve, called her. And then in the last moment, I was so relieved that I'm not going to talk. And in the last moment, they even found like, so anybody else? The last person? And I just silently quit the queue. I'm like, I'm not going to talk. But interestingly, I don't consider that as a losing event or failure. I consider that a very interesting choice because I was very conscious in the process that okay, I experienced this fear. It was interesting event. I knew that I can overcome this fear. I knew how to overcome this fear, but I consciously choose to not create negative experience for myself and just choose to go for the next talking somewhere else. So I will be able to learn a different experience. Now I was on on 4 Toastmasters, and then the last one was twice. So I missed a few of them, didn't have option for me to speak. So I was just sitting there and observe. But on the last 2 options, I was in the same club, which I personally liked. So when they called me finally for this specific talk, and I had to fight for that because basically everybody jumped on that 7 people who will speak for free. And I was last. So I was like, oh, I was running. It was too far. But so I was fighting for me speak this time. So it's a big difference between, oh my God, I'm going to avoid speaking, and no, I'm going to speak even if you don't want it. So I fought for my cue. I spoke about something, I don't remember what. The feedback which I got for the first speech was it looks like it was prepared speech. Your speaking was absolutely perfect. Your communication with the people was absolutely excellent. And they only said that the final part was kind of scattered, which I personally already knew, but by the time, because I couldn't tell them subscribe to this channel, comment below, or do any of call to actions which I'm habitual to. And I knew it. I mean, I really knew I had no call to action. And I realized it in the process of the speaking because it was impromptu. Now, next time I get to the same club after a couple of months, And I had exact same feedback. They said, "Oh my God, you are amazing. We had chills. We had emotionally involved in this story. It's fantastic." This time they like the end of the story. They absolutely love gesticulation, moving, talking, connection, everything. Now they love that. And I understood that my methods work. I had zero fears about that. I could overcome them. Why so? Because I knew that the first time these fears will come up in my mind. And then the next time I was absolutely ready to tell completely different story and ignore these fears. So it's a
Mm.
lot about two things. You're ready to tell your story. So on the circle, you already get to a state of wisdom when you want to share it. You're like, oh my God, I have something to share. You can't stop yourself. You want to share the story. Now, next one, you know how to work with your fears and you observe, is this my fear that stops me? Is this some kind of insecurity which stops me? Or I'm not ready to tell my story. So those are two elements which you need to consider when you want to share your story and something stops you.
Do you always, and I'm loving that we have a bunch of listeners who are obviously hanging on every Eve word because no one has a question yet. But so I'll keep asking them. The When you're ending a story and you're still in process because you're maybe still living it, or
Mhm.
as you would say, even though you're telling the story from a different perspective, maybe part of it is still the story from the scar, or you're not sure yet where the journey is going. When you're ending a story with, I love to call them calls to connect, as opposed necessarily to a call to action, or at the end of our discussion today, we're going to remind people, here's how you find Eve, here's where you tune in to see her next, here's how you support her next. But when we're doing it ourselves, I think we get stuck in, there's so many different ways this could end, there's so many different places I could invite you, so that it seems sometimes, no matter how well organized it is, to kind of run together almost like it's a rainbow or a spring or something. How do you stop that in the middle of telling your story? And here's Emma. Thank you so much, Emma, with a thanks for joining us. Emma wants to know, how do you structure your feedback forms to determine which part of your story resonates with the audience?
You need to talk to your audience. And this is what I call make your hands dirty, so to say. And that's the most important part for any business. You talk to your people, you hear their story first. And when you hear their story, and I would recommend you not to go through the forms, I would recommend you to talk to people in person and hear exact words which they use when they talk. Here is a difference between forms, any feedback forms, which are written most of the time, and the verbal communication. When people write, they think, they use a logical brain. When people speak, they use a lot of emotional part of the brain, the limbic system. They express themselves differently. So you might end up with the answer which is not necessarily true if you will use the written forms. Now, if you can't avoid it, I would recommend you to ask in your forms the open ended questions. The open ended questions which are not imply the answer. That's a very important skill which you learn with a little bit of practice. When we were doing the research in the agency and we were asking how people experience specific events, what emotions they were, we were very specific about areas where they experience specific emotions, but we will allow them to actually tell their story. So it's important to give people idea on which they can elaborate, but not affect them with your own thinking. So I hope this answers your question.
Well, sometimes people are suggesting, and I know now certain people during presentations, they're using, um, like, I think Talkadot is one, but they're using, they're trying to collect information and actually build their list at the end of a virtual talk. So they're
Mhm.
promising us a freebie or some lovely sort of bonus to kind of uh, share our viewpoint. I love what you're saying about the open-ended questions, but
Mhm.
sometimes in a virtual event, and especially one that we're not hosting, where we're a speaker or it's part of a much longer agenda, the desire to really find out who's in the room with you, and that can be so challenging. And I love now, and I'm starting to get better at it, to attending like a live or a networking event, and saying to people, please reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn, because at
Yeah.
least then we can continue the conversation as you're suggesting. On the other hand, sometimes someone sending a connection request on social media, we reach out and connect. They may be expressing an interest in something. We accept, and they're using it as an opportunity to pitch us and set up a call. I love getting to know people over virtual cappuccino or virtual coffee and reaching out and really talking and getting a chance to really enjoy them. What's occasionally irritating is this person who's like, hey, I love stories. I'm curious about something in your story. They're interested in, do you have 15 minutes next week? I mean, it's starting to become that specific. And
Mhm.
I'm laughing as I'm packing today because 7 people have asked this question now in 4 days. If it's about connection and it's about the key, and we really care to hear what others think or feedback about our story, a program, or a presentation, how do we, mm, you would say, don't use story repellent. That would be a bad word. Don't discourage people from reaching out. At the same time, and I love it for being in your programs, you remind us all the time, some people are for us, other people are not necessarily for us yet. But how would you handle that in terms of the people who are basically using a story or a message as a fast track to connect? How should we handle those, whether it's in networking
Several
or
things.
it's in that call to connect?
Several things. It's very important part. Our story, especially when we give it on video, is an instrument to connect with people without connecting with them in person. We need to understand this is a story which saves us time. Now we can use the story in a different way, which is a shorter format when we reach out through the messenger with a recorded video or something like that. That's a different story. But overall, our content strategy with our story is built to grab people's attention and connect with them without us being involved in that. That's the must. Because if you build and scale your business, you can't possibly be in connection with everyone. Now, we touch now a very different topic because that's basically the business structure and connection structure, how we build up the customer journey. But let's touch it. So, customer journey in this case, let's say you have the storytelling content, which is based on your story, which is based on tips, which is based on the proof, like, testimonials or any other things which you share online. Now, people want to connect with you. As you say, you don't know if they want to pitch you, if they are potential clients, you just don't know who these people are. Now, if you will process every single person who reach out to you in person, your business will never be able to grow. You need to have people to answer this, or you need to have a system which is processing these people, filtering these people. The mistake of coaching community and many entrepreneurs communities, they believe that they need to convert every single person who come to them. It's not true. You need to actually filter every single person who come to you so that you hear yeses on discovery calls instead of talking to people consistently for no reason at all. And I'm speaking from the introvert perspective, and most of my clients are introverts, and they're like, speaking to hundreds of people a day, that's disaster, fully booked calendar, disaster. I want my weekends back. And that's a good desire. That's how I built the
You
business.
should see the emojis.
So the thing is, we need to have a system which is filtering these requests, the feedback forms or whatsoever kind of things. Feedback forms specifically. How much time your client in the circumstances on the customer journey, these people will have, how much time, what kind of circumstances they have when they using this feedback form. Giving you an example, I was last year, I was on a very, very big, very expensive event for entrepreneurs. Many coaches gave us some feedback forms. It was dark. It was impossible to answer. We didn't have, I mean, did I think, well, what do I want to answer? I didn't think at all. Did they collect any valuable data from these papers? I don't think so. So it depends how well you build connection with people so that they trust you, they really want to give you genuine answer. It's up to you how you structure and build the customer journey so you build enough of connection with them, enough of trust related connection with them through the stories, through your videos, through some gifts or freebies or whatsoever, so that they're now ready to invest in you and give you the valuable open question. That's why marketing research calls is one story and calls for discovery calls a different story. So if you're on your customer journey, you have very relevant, well-structured content and you start getting people, you need to understand that these people have to be your clients if you know your clients well already. So they need to answer specific forms and answer you what is their problem, what are their dreams, and where they are right now on their journey. Those are three important questions which will give you input on where your story can connect with your client's story. Pain point, gain, what is in the middle. How you will form it is up to you, depend on your business. So you give these three questions in your feedback form and you see if they are ready to work with you. Most of the time, coaches ask three questions, such as, are you ready to pay up to this amount of money? There are plenty of freebie hunters, and you really need to know if these people are ready to invest in you. Now, if they're not ready to invest in you, you can guide them to the free content which you have on YouTube, which you have somewhere else. It doesn't mean that you have to kick out these people. They might be ready after all. So you just need to guide them to the free content. Now, you also need to know if these people are ready to work with you. Now, if you're a responsible coach or expert or leader, you are responsible who you take on board. So you need to know, for example, if in Maslow pyramid you work for the self-actualization and only can help people for the self-actualization, you are not allowed to take people who are on a lower level of pyramid, not able to pay you, looking for the shelter, looking for the food because you're not able to help them. And that's a problem of the industry because many teachers, many coaches actually seduce the people on a lower level of pyramid who don't have enough money with the higher level packages, and they're not able to help them because their purposes are not matching. So your filtering have to work for you to find the right people for your programs because you are responsible for who you take on your program, who are going to work with you. And that's why you build the customer journey, thinking about them with responsibility for their results. What are they going to gain with you? How are you going to deliver them their dream life? If you are already where they want to be, you have some ideas probably, and probably you have a program which can help them with that.
I love what you're suggesting about coaches, but I think I approach it differently and probably suggest sometimes my clients approach it differently also is, as you were saying, people who think that they're ready to help everybody, they're assuming that everyone who has a conversation with them is ready to buy. And sometimes it's really the person is just looking for that connection key that we're talking about today in our title. I crack up all the time because my banner mentions collaboration coaching. So 6 out of 10 connection requests say that the person is interested in collaborating. Before, these are ones that I receive, not necessarily ones that I send. So when I'm looking at their posts and reading the story, or listening to the story. And in some cases, it's a person I haven't had a conversation with. We haven't had a chance to really hear each other's voices, to kind of exchange energy. And I think one of the things that is really challenging is there's I wouldn't call it a pitch slap, which a lot of people will call it in a case of LinkedIn, but it's an assumption now because the door is slightly open, and maybe you know that someone's visited your profile and checked out your stories. You're assuming that they are at the ready to buy perspective. And I believe that assumption part is the part that really hurts because, as Emma asked, there's no feedback form, there's been no qualifier, there is no discussion. I mentioned writing a book, the number of publishers who've reached out, and someone reached out assuming that I was interested in their story. It was not a convenient time. They then reached out again, and I missed the key part here. I went past the intuition part, which basically was letting me know we weren't a good fit to collaborate, that really they weren't in a listening mode. And I think that part too of stories, that stories need to be bite sized so that we can get the sound bite, or we can get the part that's of interest, or as you would say, and you said it from the Toastmasters perspective, get that call to action, or what I like to call a call to connect. Eve, we are so going to have to continue this discussion. Before we leave, let us know what's coming up for you in addition to your premiere this week.
Mhm.
And everyone who has not had a chance to hear about Eve's premiere, we're going to put a link to her global premiere in. It'll be on her LinkedIn.
Mhm.
It'll be
Yeah.
also on her YouTube. But Eve, let everybody know what's happening and what's coming up.
Just one thing I wanted to add to that, what you said. I treat collaboration and business completely differently because I don't see them as the same thing. So when you have the customer conversion story, it's one story. When you work with collaboration, is different story because it's a different audience, and each audience require different approach. You can't use the same for everybody, so you have to be very specific what you're doing for whom. And I collaborate with other coaches and experts for my Brand Your Dream show, and I talk a lot with marketers, with yourself, with many other amazing people who help coaches and leaders to gain more wisdom. So it's like different audience completely. Those who need my help and those who can collaborate with me to give more help to other people. So that's I want to add that just we need to understand which
I
audience we
love
can.
that, which is why I'm a believer in chemistry sessions.
Mm,
So people call them discovery sessions. I think it's about chemistry. Are we a really good fit for each
that's,
other?
mhm.
Are we a
Yep,
good fit to help each other, to work together on a project? And also, it gives you a sample sometimes of how the wonderful person that you're speaking with will handle referrals with care, with grace, hopefully with elegance and eloquence. But
yep,
where can we find you later
yeah,
this week?
yeah.
And tell
Get
us more about
get
what
back to
you're going
this.
to
So I absolutely invite everybody for premiere of my documentary film, and that will be about amazing people who deliver in ambulances to Ukraine from Britain. They create amazing charity which is called Help for Ukraine Charity, Help for Ukraine.charity. Visit them, donate to them, send all the ambulances to Ukraine. Very much needed. So I filmed something about them, and our main hero who's sharing his experience from being from the first day of the war in Ukraine and filming his own film about Ukraine is John Sweeney, a legendary BBC journalist, and he's speaking about his experience. He's speaking about why Ukraine need help. Amazing story. And then we share the story from the guys who actually deliver in these ambulances. Real people, they're just normal people. They just drive ambulances in 48 hours to Ukraine. Amazing missions, amazing story. Worth to listen, worth to donate. So come to premiere. watch this film, tell me what you think. I hope you will like it because I'm going to film a lot more documentaries. And I hope that this documentary, which is my first, let's be honest, so don't be harsh. I hope you will enjoy it. So this is one thing. It's on the 1st of March, 7 p.m. London time, much earlier in the US. So just check the event on LinkedIn or just sign to the event on YouTube. So this is one. And after the premiere, we will talk with wonderful people who also help Ukraine in different ways. So it'll be a little panel discussion. We will discuss how you can help potentially. So it's interesting. Now, Visibility Gym program will start in April. And luckily, me and Mel checked the Easter time and decided to move Visibility Gym dates, which is lovely because I almost started Visibility Gym on Easter time. Bad me. So we moved the dates right now. You can check visibilitygym.com website if you like, or you can just connect with me about that on LinkedIn. Send me the message, mention that you would like to join Visibility Gym or discuss Visibility Gym, and we can set up the call and talk about the program. The program help you to overcome fear of camera, right? Help you to become visual storyteller, actually learn how to create videos which convert viewers to buyers and many more, because this time we're going to also open membership, so it will be amazing. If you're interested, let me know. So I think links will be shared with you somewhere in description. So that's also easy. And absolutely, I want to invite you to listen to Brand Your Dream Show on YouTube. This is a show where amazing experts, they are fantastic, they are marketers, they are coaches, they're spiritual coaches, they're like, it's a bunch of people who really help people to understand life. And it's catered to entrepreneurs, coaches, it's catered to leaders, it helps people to understand that they're not alone on this very tough business journey. So I hope you will enjoy the show as well. So you can subscribe to YouTube channel and watch without subscription, up to you. So it's absolutely free, and I think you will enjoy a lot because every interview is just packed with wisdom. People are amazing. It's absolutely lovely. And it's too many, actually. Too much of call to actions. Let us, if you will decide that Visibility Gym program is slightly something which you will want to take one day, but not right now, I would recommend you to subscribe to Visibility Gym channel on YouTube. It's again YouTube slash something at Visibility Gym. Why so? Because on this channel, first of all, the documentary premiere will be on this channel. Second of all, this channel will present 6 more documentaries for sure up to the next year, because I already film a few. I'm going to film another one very soon in March. And I want to focus a lot on visual storytelling to show you how you can create amazing films for your business. So you will learn just by watching, and I will share a lot of behind the scenes, how you will be able to use your stories to create amazing content for your business. So these are directions where I want to send you. That's it.
Exciting. And Eve, exquisite Eve, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your gems. Thank you for your Visibility Gym channel on YouTube so we can plug in and enjoy in between. And I'm really looking forward to your upcoming membership. So, Eve, we've got emojis going again. We have to remember to put all those links in. Thank you very much for your patience. And the
Thank
links
you.
are coming shortly. Please invite friends to join us. And please keep sharing Eve's
Yeah.
valuable, amazing trainings. And thank you, my dear, for
Thank you
always
so much for
being
having me.
wonderful you. And we are laughing. Eve and I usually are in opposite colors. So today Eve is red, I am blue. On that note, we are going to wish you have a magnificent day filled with opportunities and possibilities. Stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, stay in touch. And we're really looking forward to seeing you during Eve's
Yeah.
upcoming premieres this week. And as she debuts 5 or 6 more over the coming year. I know we're cheering you on. I am so excited for you. And congratulations on all your big steps.
Thank you.
Thank you, Exquisite Eve. Be well, stay safe, everybody. We will talk to you soon. Take great care.